my friends, it's now time for the Soulful Psalms segment of Beacon of Truth. The Soulful Psalms, we take one of the Psalms from the wisdom literature of the Old Testament that we hear in every Mass and that we hear during the Liturgy of the Hours, and we connect that Psalm to your everyday lived experience. Well, today, we're continuing our look at Psalm 56. Psalm 56 is in Book 2 of the Psalms. Psalms 51 through 72 in Book 2 are all written by David. And so the prescript for this psalm is, I usually do it in Hebrew, but it's long, so I'm going to just do it in English. And it's the entire first verse of Psalm 56. For the choir master, Lemenzech, intone like the dove of distant places, a miktam of David, when the Philistines seized him in Gath. All right. So that again, this gives the context for understanding what David was experiencing when he wrote this psalm. And he started off, "Have mercy on me, O God, for people assail me. They fight me all day long and oppress me." Right? So David starts off the psalm by stating the problem. Lord, here's what's going on. I love that when I go to adoration. First thing I do is I just give thanks and honor and praise to God. And then I say, okay, Lord, here's what's going on. And he already knows, right? But just being there in his presence, spilling my heart out interiorly, obviously, because you don't want to talk and stuff while people are in there. But pouring my heart out to him, here's what's going on. You know what's going on, or I need help here. But obviously David is going through a difficulty. Again, the Philistines seized him at Gath. Philistines weren't too happy with David. He, was a fierce warrior, killed many Philistines, including their great hero Goliath. And was, took all the foreskins of the Philistines in order to marry Saul's wife, Michal. So it's like, yikes, man. So obviously he was under some distress here. But we're picking up at verse 11. Hopefully we'll get through the rest of Psalm 56 today. He says, "This I know, that God is on my side." Right? If David doesn't know anything else, and this is something to remember, we're going through something difficult. If you don't know anything else, know that God is on your side. Right? So David acknowledges that. This I know, that God is on my side. In God, whose word I praise. In the Lord, whose word I praise, right? So it says Elohim, who's the word that he praises, and then Adonai, the word that he praises. So and Jesus is both, isn't he? Right? He's Lord and God, right? And so I can't help but think about Jesus, the Word that became flesh and dwelt among us. Why? He wanted to touch us with his own hands. He wanted to love us with his own heart. He wanted personal relationship with us. And so the word became flesh and dwelt among us. And that's what we praise. The God that we praise is Jesus. The Lord that we praise is Jesus. And then he continues, "In God I trust. I shall not fear. What can man do against me?" Man, I love that. If that's not a confidence booster in faith in God, I don't know what is. But again, to pray this in the midst of trial, right? In the midst of through a particular difficulty that you're going through, to remember to praise and to honor God, to trust in Him and not fear, right? Not be afraid. So this is the other. See, again, in English we use fear. Right, it's just one word, can mean many things. Usually when you see fear, it's yareh, which means honor, reverence, and respect. But this is the other derivative of fear, which actually means fear, like being afraid, right? And so we don't have to be afraid. Why? Because we trust in God, because we have confidence in God's merciful love to respond to what we're going through right now. I love that. Then he adds at the end, "What can man do to me?" But I just like, there's nothing that they can do to me that's going to turn my heart away from God. Nothing. It reminds me of St. Paul in second. Is it second? Well, I'm not sure if it's First, Second Corinthians. Or trial, or tribulation, or the sword, or nothing can take me away from the love of Christ. Nothing. And with that same confidence, David is praying this psalm, the same confidence that Paul has when he says, when he's going through something difficult and that he trusts in God, that there's nothing that can move him away from his love and his trust of God, even in difficulty. I love that. Then David continues in verse 13, I am bound by the vows I have made you. O God, I will offer you praise. So he said he's bound by the vows that he made to God, right? He's bound by those vows. And so as a ordained deacon and as priests and bishops, we're bound by the vows we make. In marriage, you're bound by the vows you make. In religious life, you're bound by the vows that you make. In baptism, right? The parents made those promises on our behalf, right? But we still have that baptismal call to holiness. And when we pray the creed, and when we make the sign of the cross with holy water, we're renewing that baptismal promise. So, we are bound by the vows we made. And God is bound by his covenant promise to us as well. And Jesus fulfilled that promise on the cross. He died and rose and gave us the Eucharist so we can have life forever with him. In God, whose word I praise. And then we have a parallelism here. In the Lord whose word I praise. In God I will offer praise, for you have rescued my soul from death. Right? So we talk about the Eucharist, the medicine of immortality. Right? The God's life, literally in that sacrament, is the life-giving power of the Eucharist. Again, which we remember today being Thursday in the Luminous Mysteries, the institution of the Eucharist, the fifth luminous mystery. And you have rescued my soul from death. You have kept my feet from stumbling. So, yes, so we may stumble, but we may not fall. And sometimes we do fall. That's mortal sin. And what happens when we fall? We go back in that confession, we pick ourselves up, we keep moving forward. He says, you kept my feet from stumbling. Why? If we fight against those forces that are trying to move us away from God, and we may stumble, but we won't fall, right? Because why? We trust in the power of God when we cooperate with the grace of the sacraments, to come into our hearts, to come into our lives, to help bring us to a place of fulfillment and meaning and purpose. And so when we align ourselves with God's purpose, our heart with God's heart, yes, we may stumble, but he'll prevent us from falling. But we have to cooperate with God in order for that to happen.
Yeah, and for anyone who's ever had a parent that, always tells you that they're proud of you, I believe that's what builds our confidence of that. Our parents believe in us, so I clearly can do this. They see in me what I have or can accomplish to get to A, B, or C. And then if you've lost a parent, you understand the importance of that confidence when they're no longer there to tell you how proud they are of you. But we have our Heavenly Father who's constantly believing in us, and He made us. So that confidence building should be even to the nth degree, because we know that He knows where we're going, because He's taking us there.
Yes, exactly. And with that same confidence that David has when he wrote Psalm 56 here, is that same confidence we should have with God as well. I love that. He said that He kept my feet from stumbling, that I may walk in the presence of God, in the light of the living. Right? That last line of Psalm 56 is just so rich and deep. Walking in the presence of God. Right? So God walked with His people, dwelt with His people in the temple in the Old Testament. Now He dwells with us in Jesus Christ and the sacraments in the New. In the light of the living, because Jesus Christ is the dawn from on high, the light that penetrates the darkness of this world, so we can live in His light forever in heaven.
For more on the Psalms with Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, check out Beacon of Truth weekdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio and streaming everywhere you listen to podcasts.